This is the Open University.
You watch because he talks. He talks because he's tall. And if the world could roll, he could know it all. It spins its lovely tail, just like a pretty fox. An open university, an electronic box that talks because you are.
Hello my trusted colleagues, this is Ballyhoo Two, in which I explain to you the concepts and the experiences of making Ballyhoo, my AI, artificial intelligence album, which is also a K-pop album, and is now like 10 or 11 tracks in. I say 10 or 11 because I think I've dropped the War Peace track, which just seemed too generic, and had lyrics written by AI, which I thought were naff, because they were about neon lights and things. All K-pop lyrics, according to audio.com, are about neon lights. So I'm happy with this experiment, but I just wanted to clarify, because there are a few doubters, a few sort of people out there thinking I'm endorsing AI composition, which is to them a form of plagiarism. And all I would really say is that this is a question I'm posing myself, which is the future of pop music going to be AI generated composition? In other words, is it going to remove humans like me from the equation? Or is it going to be a tool for songwriters to use, which will hopefully enhance their compositions? And it's probably a bit of both, to be honest. It's not either or. But I just wanted to sort of say that Momus records, because they come out frequently, about once a year, even more frequently sometimes than that, but they're like putting little weather vanes up, or barometers, or something, acid-soaked blotting paper, trying to capture what's in the atmosphere that year. What does it feel like to be alive at that time, in my personal life, but also in the life of the world and the public and society, and how technology, for instance, is affecting those things. So this is really no different than doing a COVID album in 2020. You know, COVID is to Vivid what AI is to, and K-pop to some extent, is to Ballyhoo. You know, I'm absolutely not saying AI is a good thing, but it's there, it's out there, it's in the atmosphere. It is menacing us to some extent, and it's also tempting and amusing us in other ways. So this is just me trying to work out whether I'm going to be gobbled up, whether my beloved profession, and it is so much fun making pop. And this is probably my most pop album for a long time, because AI does think in terms of, you know, there's got to be a catchy chorus. The interesting thing is that you're basing your composition, well, it's a contradictory tension, I would say, between, on the one hand, the technology is still glitchy, still produces eccentricities, and is still used as a novelty for amusement, for amusing the users of these websites, which can generate pop songs about inappropriate things, or comedy lyrics, or, you know, I've been putting in silly lyrics about coprophilia and things like that, in the bath mostly, just to amuse myself, and then turning these things into actual songs, and using a mondegreen technique of listening to lyrics, often in Korean, that have been generated by the machine, and then thinking, well, what would I say here, or what might the machine be saying here, and getting almost I Ching-like randomness into my lyrics, which I find very refreshing. I like that I don't quite know where the songs are going, what they're going to be about. But I was saying this tension exists in AI pop between the glitchy and the eccentric and the novelty aspects of it, and the fact that it's mining copyrighted works from, you know, the whole history of music. And it's particularly interested in successful music obviously that's been published in the first place, and that has been recognized and successful. And you know, you can ask it to do weird avant-garde left field music, and it will do that. But it can also, if you ask for catchy pop hits, which I'm mostly doing, I'm saying catchy, funky words like that in the prompts. it will give you that as well. So there's this tension between the weirdness, especially the current weirdness. And this is another thing about being a Momus album that's about right now. Right now, AI is glitchy and weird and eccentric, and that suits me just fine. So I'm getting a lot of weird, glitchy and eccentric songs out of this. I'm actually doing more recomposing than composing, because the engines themselves are composing the songs. So I don't look down on, for instance, arrangement, production, the sound involved, and also one's taste. So I think it's not really so different from what I always do when I make songs, which is based on desire. It's based on envy, if you like. It's based on an erotic relationship to otherness, or to the other, which is that I find pop songs out there which kind of make me wish I'd written them, and then make me want to rewrite them maybe as my own songs. And I don't think this is so different from what the Rolling Stones or anyone else does. That it's not like we are sitting there with a blank sheet of paper and our own feelings and then we write a song. It's more that we're relating to songs that are out there that already exist, and that we have a kind of relationship of desire or glamour with something. We recognize something in them. We're good curators. We go out there and we curate the best of what exists, and then we relate to it with our own concerns, our own local experiences, and our needs. So I find I'm doing that, and it's almost like you inhabit a house or a flat, and you decorate it according to your own aesthetics and with your own needs. And so taste plays the instinct of taste. So I have kind of reflexive habits when I'm writing songs, and I'm kind of trying to use AI to escape those. But of course, those inevitably come back in when I do a balancing act in recomposing or reproducing, if you prefer, a song. And the balancing act is there enough human content in this? Is this kind of real enough to me personally? Is this too naff? And is the production too grungy or whatever? Is that snare sound right? Is it? A lot of the time I'm finding the AI tracks are over enthusiastic, hyped up, ballyhooed, if you like. They've got sort of screaming, soulful Korean foxtresses singing these powerful K-pop type hits. And of course, real pop music does sound like that. It sounds over-motivated and over-aggressive to me. I always like Susan Sontag's definition of pop music as aggressive normality, or rock music perhaps. Aggressive normality is normality turned up to 11. It's all these conventional and conformist values pushed into your face. And at a certain point in the 80s, that was very evident. Now it's become a little more marginal again. It keeps going back to the margins to try to regroup its energy. But what I do when I take these tracks is I tamp down the energy levels, and everything turns into a slightly delicate, restrained, refined, and removed kind of Momus song, with me singing, usually in a quiet voice, like someone mumbling their personal thoughts and confessions, which is strange because a lot of the confessions are machine confessions, or the thoughts are machine thoughts, or they're my mishearings of machine thoughts. So I find all this kind of fascinating. And there are tracks like, the catchy track I just did yesterday, which have these lines in them, which I call it my Professor Calculus style. He's called Tournesol in the original French or Belgian strips of Tintin, and he's deaf, so he mishears everything. And I find misheard lyrics, mondegreens in other words, so great often because they're fresh, and also they seem to be straight from your subconscious, like when you misread a sign and it says, sad today or something, and it actually says world today. And, if you're feeling sad that day, you misread that deliberately. Your brain is trying to tell you something about your state of mind. So mondegreens are like that. And there was a line in yesterday's song that said, I'm in the luxury of wunderschön, hauled by my britches through the music of the spheres. I'm in the luxury of wunderschön. So, and then there's another line, I might change it actually, because I liked how it sounds. It sounds like the luxury of Photoshop, or so. I'm in the luxury of Photoshop. Which is kind of how these songs are, and the videos often are using AI to enhance my face, my aging face, for public consumption. So I kind of like the mishearings, and I like the Mondegreens. I did 6 songs and I talked about those last time. 5 more, starting with the enshittification of everything. In 2008 I was on a panel called The Future of the Library in London, organised by Bob Stein, who used to do a CD-ROM series called Voyager, very good. And there was this guy on it called Cory Doctorow, who's the son of E.L. Doctorow. And at the time he was running Boing Boing. I don't know if he still does that, but the Boing Boing was like the biggest blog out there for tech bros and other people. And he's still around, Cory. He was very unfriendly when we met on the panel, and he was sort of, in a rather autistic way, he was just fixated on his laptop, and he was scrolling through, going through endless heaps of images, presumably for his blog. And this is actually what people all do now. They're all scrolling through something now on their phones. But back in 2008, that was the first time I'd ever seen someone data mining so fixedly, in this kind of almost paranoid way, just sort of trying to find something interesting from an endless source that he had somewhere. And I thought, this guy is weird, you know. Anyway, he came up with this phrase, the enshittification of everything, which is actually a very useful phrase. Thank you, Cory, for the way internet companies tend to make their products and services worse by trying to monetize them. After having, you know, attracted everybody to the platform, they then just bombard it with advertising, and the experience becomes worse and worse. And then eventually the thing's sold to a bigger company and gets even worse. Anyway, the enshittification of everything, it's actually a restatement of the second law of thermodynamics, which is that energy levels tend to dissipate under given normal circumstances in a closed system. In other words, things fall apart, as Yeats put it. It starts at conception, continues with birth. Then you grow up, start to fend for yourself. And soon you get sick, and soon you get old. The bucket gets kicked, the body goes cold. You're a broken invention, brought up on lies. There's no guarantee when you're hypnotized. It starts with your pleasure, it ends with your pain. The enshittification of everything. The weird thing about the enshittification of everything is it started with the George and Mildred theme tune. George and Mildred was like a British sitcom. I didn't even watch it back in the 70s, but I had this YouTube playlist which I was auto-playing while I was sleeping, and it somehow reached an episode of George and Mildred, and I woke up to the sound of this theme tune, which is actually a very beautiful theme tune, very 70s, you know, kind of library music or something, but with a kind of romantic edge to it, more romantic than the sitcom deserved. So I woke up with this in my head and then sampled it and put it into suno.com, which can, unlike Udio, I don't think you can do this with Udio, maybe you can if you pay, but you can upload files to Suno and then it will it will work on them, it'll transform them into something else. So I asked Suno to turn the George and Mildred theme into a funky K-pop track, which it did, and it sounds a bit like. And then I was also, my favorite K-pop track is called Bubblegum, and it's by New Jeans. It's quite recent, a month or two ago they released it, and it's so I then tried to take some of the piano parts from that, and there's a kind of weird dreamy quality and overlapping Rhodes piano chords in that track, which I really like. It's got a kind of a gentle mystical feeling, which often I try to go for in my songs. So I then did this verse structure using that and connected that with the funky version, the K-pop version of George and Mildred theme tune. So it turned into this song about how things go to hell in a handcart, the intensification of everything. And it became very funky, and a lot of editing work went into making it quite funky. A lot of funkiness is me playing real guitar, so there's real acoustic guitar bass, there's real acoustic guitar James Brown style top lines, you know, and a lot of painstaking editing to make it seem that spontaneously funky. So the usual kind of masquerade that we songwriters do to make it sound like we're just giving you our fresh desire or our fresh feelings, but it's actually a lot of work behind the scenes. It's one of the better tracks, one of the tracks I enjoy listening to, and I'm really into the up tracks. I don't want to get too ponderous and gloomy and miserable on this album. I want to do a really bright pop album. So the next track was Swishy, which originally I was calling Taylor Swift. The first version I took of this was in the bath, and it just turned out so bizarre. It was like a very ornate piano with this kind of Mo Tucker feeling in the way that the vocalist, which might be based on Taylor Swift, was handling the strange lyrics I was putting in.
You're so swishy, but something smells fishy. I'm calculating like a little spider, so they say. And every single day I crack the joke for you, as if I were a poor boy, a pig in the poke for you. Classical, the critics say, just another sunny day in paradise or down the porn parade. Wearing my electro shield with a toe in every field, manning my electric ramp with writer's block and cramp.
And actually, in the interim between doing that in the bath and now, it's turned out to be a terrible time to be a Taylor Swift fan. There was an episode in the UK where children doing a Taylor Swift dance class were stabbed to death, and then there was race riots based on the reaction. In Vienna, they actually found a bomb plot, so Taylor Swift had to cancel all her concerts in Vienna. So it's not a great time to be a Taylor Swift fan. I don't really think there's much connection with Taylor Swift, but anyway, to me this song is more like some kind of hunky-dory thing, and I could imagine Rick Wakeman handling the piano much better than I did. When I tried to reproduce what the AI was doing in the piano in the verse sections where there was singing I wanted to remove, I couldn't do it. It's got these dramatic pauses that an accompanist would put into a vocalist's performance, listening to the vocalist, what they're doing, you know, the kind of old variety style of cabaret. To me it also has like a kind of Tiny Tim feeling when hippies went a bit weird in cabaret, you know, and played ukuleles and things. And then the ending is very, I think it's like Björk's voice or something in the ending, doing these funny little vocal decorations. And then in the video it's got these golfing dancers from The Boyfriend by Ken Russell. And yeah, it's me throwing Lodger sleeves around, and I do that with the greatest respect. Lodger is my favourite Bowie album, and the one I feel closest to. And the vinyl copy I had, I actually bought it originally when it came out on cassette and listened to it in my banger of a car, an old Wolseley 1300 that I had the use of. I've never owned a car. But I've inherited some vinyl edition which has the inauthentic inside sleeve, which is not the Derek Boschier authentic inside sleeve. He did some pictures of, I think, a crucified Christ, the body of Christ laid out, some watches, some water gushing into a sink, a recurrent image. I think it's also in Thursday's Child, these are a tap. You know, taps seem to represent time going past, time gushing away. But yeah, no harm intended to Lodger, and I love the Lodger sleeve. It's there on the front of my record pile because I like looking at it. The next track, Cruel, was the last of the Bath songs, so it was based on a track I had stockpiled from July the 8th. And it's got this kind of Holland Dozier Holland, the Motown songwriting team feel to it with a swing beat, a sort of big Motown swing beat. And I seem to have an anti-Midas touch, because no matter how upbeat the original track is, and this one was, I make it low-key.
I'm not blinded by your talent, I'm not blinded by your taste, I'm not teased by these skinny rabbits you hide in the hat on your face. And if I ever see you grazing at my door, I'll give you all my money if you promise me to go. And if if I ever hear you sing your donkey song, I ask you like policemen do to kindly move along, because I'm cruel, there's no denying. Fool, no point in crying. Though I mock you to the end of donkey day, yet somehow you still continue to pray. Big skull, donkey nose fool, leave me donkey brain fool. Shoot, shoot, donkey face fool. Well, cruel.
I kept the basic lyrics that I generated at the time on July the 8th, but added a lot of donkeys. And it's kind of cute how couples insult each other affectionately using animal terms. I'm personally known in the flat in Paris as Coquille Saint-Jacques, which is a shellfish, a clam, because I'm happy like a clam. No, I'm happy in water. I spend so much time in water that I'm like a shellfish. And also I wear this funny hat, which allows me to sleep in late when it's light. You know, I pull this hat down over my eyes. So inside this sort of woolen cylinder, it's open on both ends actually, I become a Coquille Saint-Jacques, a sort of clam in wool. So the video uses an Armenian cartoon from the late 60s, which seems to have been modeled on the Yellow Submarine cartoon, or possibly the animator was just using the same drugs. I think it turned out nicely. It's funky as well. They're all funky actually. Well, the next one's not so funky. The Fox and Winter was actually the first, based on the first audio track I made in July, I think the 2nd of July. And it was going to be an Open University theme. In fact, it may well have opened this episode, but it was way too good for that. I mean, it was a really quality song, I thought, and I knew that it was destined for something more. So this one has a kind of Pet Shop Boys feel in the way that I always call it the scent organ, isn't it? Brave New World. They go to cinemas and listen. They go to the Feelies, and the scent organ is playing in the Feelies. It's this very sensualized, meaninglessly sensualized world they live in, where everyone's pneumatic, and it's the year of our Ford and all the rest of it. But yeah, the scent organ, I guess it plays scents into the cinemas. But I always think of that Pet Shop Boys synth pad as the scent organ. So the Fox and Winter, I guess it's because it had a pretty fox in the original lyric that I just put in kind of randomly. I thought, well, what can I write? What can I sing meaningfully about a fox? Silver fox, you know, is it worth being a silver fox? Could I be a silver fox? What would it entail? What would I give up if I became in other words, if I were shagging around, which I'm certainly not.
To be a silver fox, now wouldn't that be grand? To lurk amongst the rocks and shag upon the sand, to dip one's bushy tail in everything that moves, to trip through hill and dale and say that life only improves. But that would be a fail, and that would be a fall. The fox would be a fool, he'd lose it all.
There's also some of Aesop's fables in there. The story of there were several fox stories in Aesop. Aesop gave me my name, Momus. Momus, I took it from an Aesop fable about the gods making a man of mud. Prometheus, was it, made a man of mud, and then the gods were criticizing, and the god Momus, who is the god of criticism, said, put a window in its chest so you can see what it's thinking. Keep tabs on this human, because they're going to be dangerous. So this one that I was using the imagery from, it's when the fox runs for the grapes, which are just a little too tall for it. They look so juicy and tasty, and he keeps making long runs and leaps, and he can't reach them, and then he just ambles off, shrugging his fox shoulders and saying, well, they probably were bitter and sour and, you know, crappy grapes anyway. And this is, you know, it illustrates how we delude ourselves, post-rationalization of our failures. I found this weird Indian folk tale about a blue fox, a fox who dyes itself blue and then becomes the king of the animals for a while and then is killed. But what was fascinating was that the animal movements were actually very realistic, but then the actual relationship of the animal movement to the landscape had been very, very badly handled, so that the fox seems to be swimming in glue or something as it's moving across the landscape. And I kind of liked the uncanniness. That's another key word, I think, for the fascination of AI, is that it's uncanny. There's an uncanny valley effect when you make a song that sounds like a real song but isn't quite. So you make a very commercial sounding pop song, and then you put weird lyrics in about foxes and stuff. The next track was called Catchy. I came to a sort of dead end. I was working on things that were not very interesting, and then I just went back to Udio and said, generate me a really catchy pop song, a K-pop song. And so it gave me this bona fide hit.
반짝이는 불빛 사이 주워줘 천천히 흐르고 있어 유리처럼 동양 이 순간
Some days when I feel low inside, you turn up and you like some gift. I'm in the quandary of moonshine. Come quintessence and spin me round again. In me, through me, playing me again. Ooh, you get catchy.
우리들까지 멈추지 마 미래를 위해 속해 나가자
It came up with the goods, and actually K-pop producers now are using AI, although they're a bit sheepish about admitting it, but some of them have admitted and then retracted the admissions and this kind of thing, that they do use AI to make their hits. And they're sitting there in Seoul typing in, give me a funky K-pop catchy hit, and getting copyright-free results from it. Copyright-free for the moment. We don't know how this is going to turn out in the long run. It's an interesting time because it's, we live in an over-regimented and regulated environment for copyright where I can't even play my own songs to you after they've been published without getting, not copyright strikes, but getting copyright monetization, spiders, finding that these are actually published songs and that I shouldn't be using them beyond a couple of seconds. But yeah, I went back to Udio and it gave me this amazing K-pop hit called Catchy, using the word catchy. So I just put that in as a prompt. I want it to be a catchy song, but then it had this Korean lyric using catchy as the chorus title, the key word. And I thought, wow, that's interesting to think of a relationship as catchy or a person as catchy, that they would have the same qualities as a pop song. So this going back to this eros, the eros of the desire to incorporate otherness, another exogamous desire to throw your arms around something you don't quite understand but find attractive and appealing, precisely maybe for that reason. So it's a song about desire for songs in a way, which could be a sexual desire as well. It's obviously bringing the funky, sexy angle, but is it really about that? Is it really? So I made a video which shows an apocalyptic city being destroyed, with me looking smug and happy in between the destruction and the clouds and the storms. And so it kind of looks like the end of the world. It's a bit like The End of History, actually, that song I wrote for The Poison Girlfriend. And it's about a happy personal relationship against the backdrop of apocalypse. It's catchy. And there's also samples from John Barry's On Her Majesty's Secret Service theme from the late 60s. John Barry, always a reference point for me, such a talented musician and such a part of what I was describing last time, the kind of foundational schizoid angle in a lot of my songs, where there seems to be like a spy theme from the Cold War. That's the next 5 tracks, and there might be another 5, there might be fewer than that. I want to keep making funky pop songs though, because I'm really enjoying the funk. And inevitably the Pareto proportion holds. You know, the Pareto rule is that it's kind of a rule of enshittification as well, or just shittification, which is that 80% of everything is kind of shit, and then 20% is going to be interesting. 80-20 proportion holds sway, because, you know, 80% of what I'm generating from the machines is rubbish and I throw it away, and then something will pop up that has this otherness or this appeal in it, this catchiness or this fascinating weirdness, off-kilter quality, and I think I could do something with that. Now, what is that? It's not cognition, it's recognition. That I recognize that this could become part of my oeuvre, part of my canon, you know, despite not having been written by me. So we get back to this theme we started with, which is, this is, it's co-writing with a machine collaborator, if you like, or it's reproduction rather than production. It's rewriting rather than writing, but then isn't everything. Goodbye.
Open University.
Well, I'm sure I don't have to talk again of my respect for the Rolling Stones and the things that they do, but it always is the greatest pleasure to welcome them to the studio.